Ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀ lọ bá jó, olúwa mi ò dìde ojú ṣẹ̀kẹ̀rẹ̀.
Hello and welcome to the Ashen Forge. I am Phantom X, joined as always by Diggs and the legendary Neurotoxin. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Great.
Doing good.
And to everyone out there, thanks for joining us. We're going to go over, I guess, the last dev discussion, which was on the 26th. I think, what, Friday? I'm always at work, so I can never remember. But,
Friday.
Not a ton of extra information, but I think there's enough for us probably to spend an hour. So I don't know if anyone has, I know both of you actually had things you kind of wanted to talk about, but, before we start talking about anything specific, I guess we should get in the, I don't want to say I told you so, but we were right about networking as the problem, the obvious problem as to the delay in their testing phases, which supposedly has worked out now.
Yeah.
I've not been on any of those testing sessions, so I'm not giving any insider information, but Steven said they've figured it out. Of course, my question is always what happens. I don't know how many testers they have, but when you multiply testers by a factor of 10, 20, does that further change your networking? But they seem to be pretty confident about what they have. I know they've spawned 5,000 bears or something, he said.
Yeah. And it was a little laggy when he spawned 1,000 something bears in that 4K video that we saw in the last stream, because you could see he had gotten pretty far away from the bears, and while the bears themselves were kind of visually lagging behind, network wise they were all right on top of him and just mauled him. That's what that rapid string of red strokes going across that just completely shredded him up was, I would imagine. Is the bears, they might look like they're back there because your stuff hasn't caught up yet. There was also a little bit of weirdness, like maybe rubber banding, or not necessarily like that, but similar sort of networking issues we saw, like when the foxes flew in after the corruption area, where everybody was going back to Steve, and it looked like the height wasn't changing at the same pace that the I guess XZ or XY, it depends on how they do their coordinate structure. But
which brings me to my first thought. Here I was going to let both of you start the discussion, and I, for whatever reason, the last 6 months talk all the time. Which brings me to my thought, my one point of discussion, and both of you probably know more about this than I do because I have a limited development knowledge, coding knowledge. But is there a difference when you're testing networking of spawning 1,000 bears that are pre-programmed to run a certain routine each and every time, compared to 1,000 players who might be starting one skill, stopping it, starting a different skill, jump, 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 run, stop, run? Like, is there a difference in the networking when you're actually incorporating player behavior versus an NPC scripted behavior?
There's a lot to answer about that, because on one hand, it could be a matter of a lack of optimization being the issue. On another hand, it could be along the lines of optimization, how much data is actually being sent and received between the player and the server and the other players in proximity all at a given time. So it could be that because the bears are doing more of the server's processing and taking a lot more of the server's processing assets and resource before it even gets to the networking phase of what they're actually doing and what's being transmitted, that could definitely make things chug, especially if each server cluster is, however many per node, and you've just overwhelmed it. But ultimately, I would say players, I guess maybe inversely to that, players would be a lower sort of network impact on the grounds that it's whatever's being done on the client side. And while there may be a little bit more security checks involved from what comes from the client and gets to the server and then propagates to everyone else, you, the player, are the one in control. You're the one who's doing like the logic and thinking sort of processing and what the actions are. So it's a little bit more about just that stuff being sent to the server interpreting it, and having everything else react appropriately and transmit properly. So I don't really know that one or the other necessarily has a higher or lower network impact. Obviously, if you spawn 5,000 bears and there's nobody to see it, it's not going to be nearly as big of an issue because there's no comings and goings that affect the players.
Okay.
I think it's also different impact because one is the calculations that have to be made as each bear is trying to react to whatever its interactions are. And that reminds me kind of the day that Nero was playing H1Z1 and he had the zombie on the other side of it's not a fence, but what are those?
Those little rails on the side of the freeway.
Yeah, the rails. Yeah, and he kept running on each side, and it had to stop and think, "Oh no, okay, it's over there now. Okay, I'm gonna run this way." And Nero would just hop on the other side. Oh no, he's over there now, and I gotta go over there. Just those kind of calculations for each mob. If there's 5,000, that's gonna cause one kind of issue, and then the other kind of issue with player characters is just gonna be the connections of getting everybody from so many different disparate places across the globe in one session or one instance on a map. I think that causes a different network impact. So I think there's different things going on there.
Okay. I was just curious. Networking, well, we could get into combat later in my concern. Networking's, I think, an understandable thing. You don't really know until you start putting people into it. So, and APOC was really such a smaller scaled project compared to this, where we're at now. I think it makes sense. If anything, that still makes me argue that I bet they wish they had not committed to no NDA Alpha 1 so soon, so that you could actually get the rush of people in and see what problems you have before it's live on Twitch. But we will get there at some point. So
yeah, I mean, they can always keep pushing the NDA back while allowing more players in, and obviously, more people, looser lips, less emphasis on like going after one of 50 or 100 certain people that have actually logged in and seen it. So I would imagine we're going to see a little bit of people being lax about their NDAs and more of the information and screenshots and stuff coming out the rumor mill from that. So, it'll be kind of interesting to see just what happens when there's more players in any phase. But they very much emphasized that right now is not about content. It's about testing. You are coming in. Yes, there is stuff to play. It's a game. You're meant to be able to act as a player, but ultimately what you're coming in to do is help them test how the server works, how things behind the scenes work, and not necessarily that you're coming in to play a game in a demo state. So they've got a bit of crafting. They've got some zones, I think they said 6 or 7 dungeons, a 40-person raid tier world boss, a few party-sized world bosses, and nodes will be able to progress from 1 to 3, and I would hope that you can also knock them back down. So, that's giving a pretty decent swath of gameplay right there.
I think you can knock them down because I don't think sieging is in. I don't think they have any of the mechanics.
That could be true.
Sieging.
I mean, it's going to be coming in on a full wipe anyway, so it's not like everything's going to be too built up.
Yeah, because what have we seen? We've seen them, right? Because sieging is supposed to have these. I mean, there's a whole thing to even beginning to start a siege. and then just stuff that you need to even start the siege progress.
Yeah.
And I don't think we've seen any of that.
I don't know if they're even having caravans in right now, which is one of those like supply line sorts of things that's like in preparation.
Yeah, but I mean, at least we've seen a caravan run. We saw that at PAX.
And then they had the dev discussion last year.
Yeah, we saw a demo of what it would take to kind of capture the thing that you need to start a siege. We saw like a demo of that with the Predator video back in 2017, but I don't think we've seen anything like that in any dev streams after that. And I think we've seen some mechanics for node popping to the next stage, but we haven't seen anything. I don't think they've ever shown us anything of how it would knock back. So we saw some sieging back for APOC when they were going to do the what was the second one? Why am I thinking of I guess sieges is what the second mode was going to be. But we know there are some mechanics for sieging somewhere. But I don't think they've actually shown us how that would work for Ashes versus APOC, what they were planning for APOC. And then how that would literally affect nodes. I don't think they've shown us anything like that. I don't recall them showing us anything like that in the dev stream. So I don't think that's going to be ready for alpha. Because I think they would have shown us some of that, even though they've pushed back alpha by a month or so. I think we would have seen some of that in the dev stream. If they were going to have.
I would certainly hope that the June 1st or June 30th playtest will actually have sieging, so that way for that month you'll actually be able to see things not only build up but get knocked down. Because I think there's going to be, other than spot testing, just a 1 week that will be sometime in May before the June testing. So hopefully by then they'll be a little bit closer with that. But you know, you're right; they haven't really shown anything.
How long does the June test last?
All month.
When do it
starts on the 1st, ends on the 30th?
Yeah, I think it would have to be some kind of speed run escalated time sieging and development for that to work, because that normally takes longer than a month for all that. I think it's a month in between sieges, depending on what stage you're at. So
it sounds like it doesn't get the
sieges. Yeah.
The 21-day lockdown period, the no siege period, until it goes from level 3 to level 4. So I don't know if that actually applies if level 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 have that, because it's supposed to be when you set up your governance and your defenses and all of that sort of stuff. So it could be that the earlier 1 to 3 can get knocked down by players in a week, that they can actually not knocked down, but built up by players in a week, that they can complete all the tasks, gain all the node experience, all the resources and everything, and build it up.
I think castle sieges seems more doable for alpha than node sieges, than knocking down nodes. But also with the limited crafting that they said would be there, I think there's a lot of crafting involved in prepping for sieges. And I don't think those crafting systems are going to be ready for that.
Right. They said there's going to be some inkling of it. You make the tools, you gather the stuff, you process it, you'll get the recipes somewhere, you'll put all the pre-components together, and then finally be able to craft something. So they are going to have some representation of it. They're going to have some amount of crafting. But you're right. I don't think it's going to be like the large scale, like, city, town, node level operational sort of stuff. I think it's going to be more just like personal, what the players build up. Maybe a little bit of like housing stuff. Oh, and on the
Um,
housing, I just want to give a quick aside. It's really funny to me when they said, "Oh yeah, if your mayor gets rid of your apartment, everything gets mailed to you, and you get to be pissed off at your mayor." And I'm thinking to myself, "No, what's going to happen is, right before a war that's been brewing for a while happens, everybody's going to move into an apartment, stash all their stuff there." Have the mayor blow it up, and then it'll just be waiting in their mailboxes. So even if you seed successfully, you don't get anything for it. So they're going to have to reconcile that at some point.
Grumpy Guy was saying more info on nodes, combat, naval is needed. Naval was a stretch goal, so I'm not, I'm not, going to hold them too much towards naval, since I would expect that to come in more towards the end as a stretch goal.
Iris
But
Cove and aquatic mounts, sure, but not full on naval.
yeah. And yeah, nodes. We're still waiting for nodes 3.
And there's a little bit of an
and,
update on that. They said they'll finally get back to doing the dev diaries when they get back to the office, because it's something they like to just round table and work together. And it's not as easy for them to necessarily do that in online chat clients. So that'll be nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna segue real quick into something that I wanted to talk about, which was Simmerg's stream he did about a week ago, and the first topic was about Ashes keeping to their vision, and my response to that is kind of, I don't think I've seen enough to know if they're keeping to their vision, and I'm not saying they aren't keeping to their vision. I'm just saying, it literally is pretty much the same that we saw 4 years ago, but we haven't seen enough of the game to know what that would mean. Um, it seems like we see a lot of the same stuff, just a few more mobs. They're adding armor, but it's kind of like the hybrid, choosing which hybrid combat you're going to hybrid or action, or what kind of combat are you going to choose? I don't know, because I haven't played enough of it to know which one I would prefer.
I would take their vision as meaning this Kickstarter video. That's if someone asks. No, seriously.
No, actually, I agree, because I was going to kind of say, it seems like what's happened is you come from Steven being like, hey, I've got the resources. I want to make an MMO based on this Pathfinder campaign I've got going in this really cool world. And I want to see it be like a really, really advanced MMO, not just the same old thing. And now, years later, after he's been working with a pro team who has been there, they've gone through the rounds multiple times, he himself has learned more about what it means to game dev and what it means to kind of have and stick to a certain vision or be able to modify it. So I think it's going to be a lot of the sort of thing that we saw in the Kickstarter and have been seeing over the years, but consider it to still be rather malleable, that there's definitely things that are going to change in different ways as the rubber hits the road and they, test things and see the reality of what it's like to try to achieve the things they initially set out to do with all the modifications that have come over the years.
Yeah, and part of what he was saying is, transparency, and I don't know. I think EQ Next was very transparent. I think Revival was very transparent. I don't know that the transparency that we see with Ashes is unique. And he's also said, well, they're still here. We shouldn't be worried about them. Like, well, I wasn't worried about EQ Next folding because it was Sony, and I wasn't really worried about Revival either. They were there until they weren't. I mean, so, and again, I'm not saying this is a negative thing about where Ashes is at. It seems realistic that they are where they at, because it takes a long time to make a groundbreaking, cutting edge mmorpg. I think it is a little concerning to have heard that they are trying to use cutting edge technology in this last dev stream, because the more you do that and the more you push that, even though obviously it would be great, the longer it's going to take to actually get a game out.
I
Um,
still see that as like a blessing and a curse that yes, it can take longer, but you can get better results. There's a lot of things. I would say probably much more with Unity than Unreal. Unity has this problem of being made by people who don't make games. So they have no problem breaking a bunch of things as they make new features, where I think the Unreal Engine is very stable and they do a very good job of vetting each and every feature before it goes into the next update. So to be able to stick along with that and then eventually move to Unreal 5 when that hits and be able to make the most beautiful modern cutting edge game ever, that's I think something that will probably be on the horizon. I don't know if they've ever talked about that, but if they mean to be on the cutting edge, then yes, stick with every single iterative update until Unreal 5 hits, and then maybe find a build you like, or maybe just keep on moving along with it and, you know, using the source code and C++ to simply cut out the things that they don't want and keep things from earlier builds.
Something kind of new that I'm hoping for now that I did not know that I would be hoping for, but having played Valheim, I'm hoping to see something at the Valheim caliber in Ashes, and that's weather. Because when I hit my first thunderstorm in Valheim, I was scared AF. Like, it's not just, oh, it's raining. It was like, no, I need to find shelter. Like, stuff is blowing around me, and I need to be in my house somewhere in shelter. Just wait out this thunderstorm because it's crazy. I've never seen anything like that in a game.
I could probably turn it off for you.
I'm sure you could.
No, it's just it's awesome. I did not realize I would be wishing for that level of weather in an mmorpg, but I hope they can get to that level of, and that's just a rainstorm. The snowstorms are actually pretty cool in Valheim too. So I think in Ashes there's supposed to be magical storms, magical biomes anyway. So I'm hoping the types of storms you could have there would also be very strange and scary and seemingly life-threatening. But that would be another kind of, I don't know if their technology is up there to do that, but it's something that I would really hope that they could accomplish.
I would imagine there's going to be some amount of weather.
There will. I'm just saying that the
To that
scary,
extent,
like, oh,
yeah.
yeah, where, because normally it's just like, oh, it's raining, that's nice. Ah, you know, there's some rain. Oh, look, there's some snow. But this is like, oh my god, like I need to wear my fur.
Well, and then also,
armor in order to slog through this.
I've modded Valheim more than played it, but also when you get like wet and things like that, that affects your character, right? There's actually a direct effect on aspects of your character if you're in a rainstorm or something like that, correct?
Wet. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that's I would definitely like to see that sort of thing, like that level of intensity. Honestly, what that kind of makes me think of is, you know, not to advertise another game here, but the way that Pantheon has been described, that you have to basically get the gear of a certain caliber to weather the elements and sustain yourself in environments that you go into. You can't just go up into the frozen tundra and, you know, have it be like a walk in a nice park. It's going to be harsh. You're going to be at a disadvantage. You might not even be able to live for that very long in there until you've gotten the proper gear that lets you survive there. So I don't think this is going to be like that, where you have to have your raincoat and your, you know, super hot, you know, summer clothes that automatically cool you off, and you got to have your anti-scratch gear if you're climbing in the mountains with the jagged rocks. I don't think it's going to necessarily be like that, but I would hope that weather will have major effects. I want to say Asheron's Call actually had pools of water that would fill in different areas. And while it's not necessarily the hardest sort of thing to do, probably especially with modern tools, I know it is a lot to have those sorts of changes in the world. And then with a game like this, the expectation is, well, if you've changed it in the world, what's it going to matter? Does it actually make things different? Does a dry lake get filled? If that pond is there for a week, are there going to be mosquitoes and nasty things that'll get you if you get through?
Yeah, for some reason that reminded me of something that Steven said in the last dev stream about, and this is we haven't even talked about the bears, I don't think. And this wasn't in terms of the number of bears that were, but just in the way the bears react to players, and maybe even to other mobs. I think it was in relation to players, because he was saying the amount of stuff that they can do, that each bear can do, they want it to be very robust so that you can have masses of players combating them, because that puts the massive back into massively multiplayer. But that's massive combat specifically. And for me, massively multiplayer does not equal massive combat. It could, but I hope that there's other things that pertain to having masses of people besides just masses of players besides just combat, even if that's how you govern your social organizations or your religions or your nodes or your castles. Multiplayer doesn't necessarily mean being grouped in for combat, I hope.
Well, I don't know if you saw my comment earlier, but assuming the transcript is correct, he did say this is a PvP game. So it is about combat.
I don't think. Where did he say that?
There was a question about, how much stronger can we expect legendary equipment over the other in-game equipment to be? And again, I only watched about 40 minutes, so I'm not sure. I didn't get to the end, but on Ash's post, part of the answer was, but since it's a PvP game, the difference will not be explosive. So I'm probably reading too much into that, but
yeah,
I think maybe likening it more to Path of Exile and the unique items in that, where or legendary items, I should say, where basically the weapons aren't like just these attribute juggernauts that are just going to push you way up and that you're going to use for the next 20, 30 levels just because it's that much more powerful, but instead that it adds a unique attribute that you can kind of build around and customize with in a special way that you couldn't normally otherwise do. Like a magic wand that steals life when you hit enemies with a spell. Suddenly you've now got somebody who's able to play more of like a mage tank role. So even if they came with a like a wizard for their primary archetype, some sort of spellcaster, they can now use an archetype, a secondary archetype in a class that kind of accentuates that additional kind of get in and fight sort of power, and be a completely different sort of force on the battlefield than you would normally see, without realizing, oh, hey, that guy isn't dying, not because he's being healed, because he heals himself. So I think that's the sort of thing we'll be seeing, like unique abilities, things that you won't find on other sort of stuff.
So the rest of the stream, is there anything, I don't really want to go line by line with it, so I don't know if there were other things you guys found interesting or wanted to talk about.
I like the look of the Feilun non-cosmetic plate they showed off. I've been saying for a while it makes it hard for me to want to buy cosmetic packs if the things that you'll find in game are already amazing and beautiful looking. It's like, well, it's, the blessing and the curse. You can make stuff that makes you look a certain way, but everyone will be like, hey, you bought that. Meanwhile, I'm out there wearing level 60 armor that I'm using the level 1 skins on. It's like, oh, I'm just a peasant. Don't look at my nameplate until it's too late.
I don't know. Even the peasant stuff, I don't think you can look like a peasant in Ashes.
There might be a way, but yeah, like the level 1 armors even look really nice.
Yeah, they want everybody to look heroic. And one of the things I loved about I love to think about with EQ Next with the heroic movement, I was hoping we could get villainous movement. Maybe you can look like a old man with a limp or a withered arm or something. Why can't we have villainous movement and villainous appearance? You can zombie move your way through the environment. And I would kind of think that, it's an RPG, so RPG means I don't always want all of my characters to look heroic. I do want sometimes to have characters that can look like peasants. I think his Steven's concept is just move through the gates to a new world or returning to an old world means that you're heroic in mind, if not in deed. But again, it could be just because you're escaping hard times on Sanctus, and you want to see what you can eke out in Vera. Doesn't necessarily mean you have the best equipment to do that with. I would think that's part of a nice storyline, I would think.
I still get more of the impression that Sanctus is kind of dissolving or, becoming uninhabitable, and that it was more of like a forced move to Vera than an optional one. And that was part of what the apocalypse and APOC was about, was the apocalypse of Sanctus.
No, it's the apocalypse of Vera. That it's leaving Vera to go to Sanctus. The apocalypse was happening 1,000 or more years in the past. So Sanctus is to Vera is just that the gods have reopened the gates because Vera is not as dangerous as it once was. The apocalypse is over. We can reclaim our ancestral home.
Okay.
But I don't know. What else did we see in the dev?
Well, so we had talked about this a little bit earlier. Neuro had asked a question, a very interesting question, and one that I had not actually even considered that got answered during the dev stream, which was essentially about quests and how they potentially could change. I don't know exactly what your question frame to them was, but
the question was basically, if a node stays the same, are the conditions of the quest giver's quests going to change, or will they always be the same and static while that node stays as it is with that population and everything? And I even gave a little bit more detail, but that didn't actually make it into the Q&A sheet for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, and the answer was?
The answer is yes, they will change. They will change by a lot of circumstances. If the nodes around you change, they may change. There may be different additional quest hooks or other sorts of routes and locations that you're dealing with. If a raid boss or a world boss gets defeated, that might change the quests. There might be seasonal quests that have more of a community focus to them, only exist during a certain period. Those would be potentially longer quests, and other things that are specifically responsive to changes in the world. Another one would probably be, I don't think they said it in the answer, but corruption. if the corruption starts to spread from another node into your node, I would imagine there would be immediately a focus on like, hold up, before we do anything else, we've got to take care of this corruption problem those bozos over there aren't handling.
Because
but what was your question was, what is the available quests? Are the available quests static, or are the quests that you've taken already, will those stay the same? What was your question?
It was more asking if a quest giver will always only give the same quest while the node is at a certain level. And they said, no, it's dependent on more things than just the node level. And that changing, that there's all these other things that can change what an individual quest giver actually offers.
Yeah, so part of that is because even at the same stage, let's say you're at stage 3, you would begin to have opportunities to build different buildings. So even though you're at stage 3 and you haven't moved to stage 4, you're starting to set up the building of other infrastructure, and that's going to change. Which ones you choose to build, that's going to change the quests. Um, those things are also going to impact what mobs are available in the area. So those would change quests, available quests. And then I think you mentioned this, even there could be a change in a neighboring node, not just corruption, but other changes from a neighboring node that impact your node, especially if you're a vassal and all that kind of stuff. There's lots of different things that could influence that, I would think.
Which is super interesting, because that's not even something I had considered. Now, maybe that's just because I've been so pre-programmed that a quest is a static here to there and back again sort of encounter, that I never even considered the idea, well, what if, because there are so many, I guess, escort type quests or delivery type quests. So I guess I never even considered the idea that if I'm supposed to take some parcel to the neighboring node, well, what if in between the node changes? I just never. It's actually, I think, a pretty neat idea that could just adds to the world change. Does the terrain change? Does the person there change? Do I get there and they say this isn't what I wanted and I have to go find something new? Or it sounds really neat in practice. It also sounds incredibly complicated to put together.
The things to think about if a node changes, that's even more impactful, because the NPCs that you got the quest for might not even be there anymore, especially if it changes to a different race. Those NPCs might be gone.
So does your quest fail? Do you have to start over? I mean,
who do you turn it into?
That's going to be something they've got to reconcile. I would imagine there's going to be some sort of like transitory period that occurs, like as soon as the siege occurs, win or lose, it might immediately change those quests. It might just, put them on hold. And then when different NPCs that you can turn it into start to populate, your little quest log gets updated. Or it could just be that you're, with a quest that can't be completed anymore, and maybe it'll just give you partial credit for it.
I mean, I suppose if it's resources, you can give those resources to different people. There might be people who always want those resources. But if it's kill so-and-so because they did so-and-so to me, well, that quest giver is dead. I don't know that anybody's going to care that you killed so-and-so. It'd be fun to see new NPCs pop up who are like, you killed so-and-so? We're killing you. Like,
yeah, that'd be fun.
So I think both of those are, it's one thing to think about how things might change within a stage, but things could change very drastically once it pops to a new stage, or once you're dropped down to stage 0, because you lost the siege. That could cause a lot of chaos, which would be fascinating to see.
It's all about nodes. Nodes. And we get what, 1 through 3? That's what he said. That's so.
For the
Yeah.
alpha. For the alpha.
So maybe we'll get some sort of sense of what they're like. I hope. I don't know that will suffice for the Nodes 3 or whatever it is we're waiting for. But I think that will hopefully speak a lot to whether, the previous question, are they holding to their vision? That I think will be a good answer to that. Everything else is pretty straightforward, right? Stephen wants a very beautiful world with a lot of, cosmetics and a lot of combat and PvP encounters. That's all pretty straightforward. I think they'll stick to that just fine. To me, the bigger question becomes the more complicated task, the nodes, the caravans, the sieges. How on point do they get those compared to what was presented initially? And we really don't know. So,
yeah. So another interesting aspect of the dev stream was corruption. We got to see a little bit of what a corrupted area looks like, and that seems to be primarily crystallization, is what indicates corruption. And I believe they said something there like as nodes progress, we might also see corruption in certain areas progress.
Yeah, and that it's something that we can handle and manage. We can take the things down. In fact, they said if you wait too long, it'll get too powerful and become potentially unmanageable. So that is going to be something that's a constant focus as the world levels up, as the players level up, as the nodes level up and change. As I would imagine, there's potentially even like an invisible world experience that keeps on growing and growing, that essentially influences the rate and power and frequency of the appearances of corruption and the growth of corruption and the ability for it to form raid bosses and completely, as they were saying, it twists and contorts the terrain itself. It takes it from its natural state and just kind of bends and twists it and such. So that's going to be really cool to see that an area that used to be your old hunting grounds or the dungeon you used to go to back as a level 10 now is this, twisted nightmare, is like a level 40 more raid level dungeon, and the entire area leading up to it, instead of being the nice, fancy, beautiful place you remember, is just completely thrown out of order. You don't have your original pathways. You don't have your original, the things that you would use to get through it quicker, because all of it's been changed and there's, more critters around.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like the liken it to a sort of hellish red Zerg creep, with the roots growing everywhere and the red crystals kind of growing on everything. I actually really liked the untextured rock. As silly as that's going to sound, I like it as like an end state for corruption, that once an area has been corrupt for long enough, it's overgrown with crystals, the life itself has been sucked out of the asset, and it's just like a dull matte gray. And it'll take a lot of work, probably, I'd imagine, a lot of help from more of the divine nodes to go back and reconsecrate those areas after the corruption's been cleared out.
Yeah, I think it might have been even for EQ Next. I was wanting to see a hell server, but I think for Ashes, for sure. At this point, I want to see a hell server. What happens when people don't manage the corruption? What does that world look like? A server where okay, we'll do our castle sieges and our node sieges, but we're not going to do anything about corruption. We're just going to let it go as corrupt as it can be.
I would imagine it'll get to the point where the players aren't actually strong enough and don't have the tools to fight against the corruption itself, and they might be able to take down some of the weaker areas and pockets, but
That's
going after the main raid bosses.
But then what happens, right? I think that's your question, right, Diggs? Like, well, what happens then if we can no longer take care of it? Like, do your characters even exist in the world? Do you log in and die? Like, how does that?
Can you get nodes past stage 2? Like, what? And you should bring that online, and then have that. What happens if that's the state of the world when people arrive from Sanctus?
Or the reverse.
Well, that's actually what I was going to say is maybe it goes to the point where you're not even able to play in this world, and you've got to go to a different world where the corruption's creeping through.
That the hardcore players want to go to, right?
Or the reverse. You start in a brand new world, 99% corrupted, and you have to somehow find a way to fight it back.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, I thought you meant the opposite of like just letting it get corrupted. So starting from zero.
I'm saying, do you have a world that has been let go, so that when people come, it's at that like maximum state of corruption.
Like,
that's
create the server in advance at 5 years or something.
Yeah, that's the hardcore server.
Every region's going to want one then, so that's going to be the challenge. Like, maybe there's going to be a region server resource or progress battle or something to see who gets to get the hardcore.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting.
Let's see, what else? There wasn't a whole lot of other major things. A lot of the Q&A stuff I feel like we kind of already knew the answers to a little bit.
A little bit. I'm just going to kind of run through the list on a couple of things.
I will say something that I'm wondering, I'm curious about, well, two things that we've talked about a lot, but, they're still looking for hiring to the point of even talking about a job fair. So I'm sort of puzzled if it's difficult to hire people right now, if they don't have people interested, if they just have so many positions, it's hard to fill them all. It seems, and again, this is part of me not understanding the business because I've never been in it, that, if and by all accounts, Intrepid seems to be a wonderful studio to work for. So, like, what's the challenge in bringing things in? Is it COVID? Although I would think that it would be easier to bring people in during COVID because you're mostly working from home, so there's not a lot of movement involved. But I'm kind of just curious as to what the, are they too picky?
Remote to an extent. I think there will be a point at which they expect most of the team to be back at the office. And at that point, anybody who's, too far to travel or has restrictions that keep them from traveling will be unable to even, go work at the studio. And then they may be trying to edge people out that way just because they want to make sure that who they're hiring are people that will actually be able to work in the office. So I definitely think that's, especially now that we're starting to see the availability of vaccinations starting to become a lot more available, that they're actually looking at doing, like they said, they want to do the job fair maybe July 1st, but possibly even sooner. And, with the next round of recruiting. So it could be sometime in June, perhaps, when they have like a physical, virtual sort of job fair, job recruiting sort of thing. And I think one of the nice things about it is you're going to get people who aren't just applying to any old position that appears. They're actually people that are interested in the project, know about it, have experience in certain ways. Being able to talk to somebody for 15 minutes to really kind of know what they are is probably going to mean a lot more than sorting through 500 applications of people that just saw a position and applied for it because they qualify.
Just curious. All right, I think you were maybe going to do some sort of rundown, kind of a bullet.
Yeah, just kind of going top down through the notes. By the way, I've got it posted in the Ashen Forge channel in our Discord, and I might post it around some other places. I'm going to start, I think, putting them out as a just a PDF that can be accessed. So they gave us the Roots of Conquest swap out is going to be April 7th at 11 a.m. Pacific. The Alpha 1 test is going to be May 14th to 21st, but there's still going to be spot testing along the way. And that one's for Intrepid Pack and Braver of Worlds Plus level backers. Steven is apparently getting a lot of duck-related names, the Duck Lord, King of Duckingham Palace, etc.
Because he's got ducks at home. Yay.
Yep. He's got, I guess they were wild ducks.
Did he buy them or did they just show up and stay?
No, I think they just showed up and he started feeding them.
And so now he's got a little house for them, and they're staying warm in the house now.
Yeah.
They will come back every year. My parents had a pool, and like clockwork, every spring, when the geese would come back from the south, there were two. There were a pair every year. Same two.
Nice.
They'll do that. They got memories for that sort of stuff. Keep it in the RAM. So the hybrid combat discussion is now at the point where they've consolidated the notes and passed it on to the team. You can keep giving feedback on it if you want, but the next one will be coming along soon. So they had talked about the what was the next one of those going to be? I don't think I got that in the notes. Mentoring was going to be the next one for the guild gatherings. Yeah, for some reason it skipped some. I don't remember what was going to be the next regular dev discussion.
So mentoring and measuring your success as a guild. So the mentoring will be an interesting conversation, I think. The measuring your EP.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Less of a whatever. But
for some reason, mentor to guild system because I specifically want to see it as part of like a guild hall sort of thing. But yeah, guild hall topics wrapping up. They'll consolidate the notes and put that up soon. And then yes, measuring success. And they kept that very ambiguous because I think they want to get as much just sort of feedback from the players on what sort of things they want to see and want to have implemented, not necessarily what they expect it to be and their thoughts and feelings on that. And then again with the dates, Alpha 1 June 1st, June 30th, that's a full wipe. The preview before that, May 14th, May 21st, that's also going to be a full wipe. Those ones are going to have the official content creators, which I'm not sure exactly who counts for that, but we should probably figure that out soon.
That's going to be a new system that
I know it's going to be on the website. Yeah.
But it's everybody has to go through that again because I don't think she was even involved with the first. Yeah, she was not involved with the first criteria for who is a content creator. So once they're ready to start that back up, she's going to start that over from scratch. People will have to reapply.
Yeah. So we had talked about the tech keeping on the bleeding edge, trying to resolve the networking issues that they have now, and feel a lot more confident going forward. Studio updates, like we were talking about, the hiring stuff, design updates. They talked about spawning the bears and didn't kill the server. The characters in the video they showed, nice and well dressed, had those fox mounts, showed off the corruption. You see a little bit more. They reworked the portal area where you start in the world, so that's awfully nice. They showed off the Suffering Wanderer creature, which moves all creepy, as well as the Father of Fear creature, which seemed a little bigger than they were ready to sit down and handle. There was an NPC named Pretty Lily the Perfect. Yeah, they ran from Father of Fear. They hit it a little bit, and the life bar didn't really move much. So it's like, we got better things to do.
What was the name of that last one?
Father of Fear, or was it the first one they fought? It was Pretty Lily the Perfect, and I don't know if that was a staffer that came to ambush them or if that was an NPC, but their nameplate was purple. So Jeff and Steven both got killed by the bears. They said, even having 1,000 bears with MMO architecture on Unreal 4 is a major achievement. So, just being able to do that is.
It's not an official dev stream if Steven doesn't get killed.
I suppose you're right. Either that or he cheats and he doesn't get killed. That's the other one that can happen.
He usually still gets killed even when he cheats.
Well, he turns the cheats on afterward. That they're constantly updating the quests and moving forward with design and improving the state of the game and how dynamic it is. So a lot of what we're seeing is progress, but it's definitely not like final complete systems. These are things that are constantly going to be built up and iterated on over the next little while. Government systems kick in tier 3. And that's why they're only going to be doing tier 1 to tier 3 during the alpha phase. Showed off some assets. They got some gibbets, or they gibbets. I can't remember how they're pronounced. Piles of bones. They've got the Sutari tribe, the corrupted bird people's faction tents and stuff. They've got some Pirate Cove stuff, not Pirate Cave, Pirate Cove. Weathered caravan parts, dilapidated ships. They have a fly-through of that, in fact, in the video. Showed off the corrupted stuff. They said that engineering has a lot of stuff they want to show, but doesn't get shown as immediately. And then we actually saw evidence of that. They showed what the death animation looks like, that you kind of poof into a cloud of smoke and leave ashes behind, and that's what people are looting. And said, this is an early version. We're not, this isn't the finished one. They have a don't call it a beholder eye stalk floating creature. They had some raid style, like 2-3 story boss that they were showing off. And then got into the Q&A. So there's the question about how to balance action and tab targeting. It's like, well, it's going to be hard to have them both in the same space. So we might just have you be able to toggle between the 2 camera types. And so my question is, well, can we have like 2 on separate monitors? So like my main one's action, and then this one here is the tab targeting. That would also give me a chance to have the camera set at a different angle so I can see what's going on behind me or around in a different way while I'm fighting what's up ahead of me. So, that'd be a nice sort of feature, or just be able to pop the UI off of the second one that's, just a mirror of what I'm playing on the first screen for nice fancy videos. They asked again about what happens if your apartment's destroyed by a mayor. Everything gets mailed to you, even the blueprint for how your place was designed, so you can automatically rebuild it. And I say there's a chance that can be exploited in a really big bad way, so you got to be very careful with how you design that. There's the question about legendary items we talked about. They said that for mounts with cosmetics, sure, you'll be able to find mounts with cool cosmetics, but they will not be the ones you find in the monthly store sales. There will be artisan enhancing gear. There will not be a currency limit outside of whatever the size of integer or, number type that they're holding for money is. If you somehow get to the end of that, I guess you've won the game, but also probably cheated, because I don't think it's an amount that anybody has ever expected to be able to accumulate in their wildest dreams.
But Euro, I thought that they've said before that if you've missed out on the monthly cosmetic mounts and pets, you can achieve similar things in the game.
Yeah, they'll be similar. And like we saw with the thing with the ice armor, where they showed some of the earlier versions of the gauntlet and then the one they finally settled on, I would imagine those other variations will end up being in the game. But the one that's specifically the final version of an aesthetics pack that you can get in the monthlies, you will not be able to get. Just, things that are similar and adjacent. There was a question about the positionality of attacks. Do rogues backstab? And the answer is yes. Rogues will be able to do backstab stuff. There might even be stuff where a tank specifically gets a special bonus for hitting someone from the front. So there will be, positions and directionality to attacks.
Yeah, I thought that question was, will there be backstab abilities like what a rogue might do? And the answer were that some abilities will have backstab, especially ones for rogues for sure.
Yeah.
It seemed like the implication is rogue won't only be the only archetype or class that has backstab abilities.
In chat, Joe Listanar, I don't actually think we're going to get an eviction notice. I think it's going to be, hey, I'm going to blow up this apartment. Boom, it's gone. It's resources now. Suckers.
I want to do that. I want to see what that's like.
I know. You want to be the evil mayor.
Hey, something with COE has sparked a change where sabotage, subterfuge, lying, cheating, stealing, I'm all for it. I'm going to be this happy farmer
That's not even
until
lying,
I'm not.
cheating, or stealing. That's just
being a dick. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a question.
RPG. So
yeah.
Well, what's funny is that they've thought about the answer to the question because they know it's going to happen. Because they know how PvP players, how players, I shouldn't just say PvP because there's plenty of dickhead PvE players too, but they know how these systems are going to be abused, so they've already thought of a way to solve that problem.
So
we typically think of PvP as being combat, but there can be PvP that is not combat.
Oh, there's very much economic and resource PvP in this game that is not combat.
No, when we first interviewed him, I don't know if you remember, I asked about crafting PvP. Like, could I go sabotage a competitor, a rival's crops, or somehow make their food not, instead of being a benefit to what you actually eat it and you get sick, or you have some sort of stat decrease. We did ask about PvP crafting, that he was not big on that. So I think the answer was no. But actually, at the time, it was probably, hey, we'll look at it and probably put it in, like everything else he would say.
Maybe. So there's a question about attribute caps, and it was a combination of, there will be diminishing returns. So it's not a flat crit percent that you're increasing. There's an attribute or something that will drive your crit percent, but the more you increase it, it'll get lesser kind of percent increases or whatever, for example. And then it's also something that's a contested ability. It's your attribute in something versus the target's attribute in something. So if somebody's got 50% crit resistance or, minus 50 to enemy crit chance, not 50% just flat. If you don't have at least a 51% chance to crit, you're not going to crit them right now. They might do something like that. There might be, legendary items that have something along those lines that goes outside of the attribute scale to give somebody something. But no, it's not going to be, you're not just going to be able to walk around with 100% crit chance. Then there was the question I had about the NPCs changing. Actually, the example I gave was much simpler. It was like, if an NPC needs a resource and then after 100 people complete that, they change it to, okay, send this resource parcel to these people in town. Then after 100 people have done that, it's, hey, I'm not getting paid back at all these people in town and gather my, my payout from them. And then after that, it cycles again. They have to get the resources again and then send the parcels and then get the. But I that's kind of a simple example. And I'm not saying that it isn't something they're going to do, but talking more about like these grand changes that happen on like a world and regional and time-based scale being other things that can drive and modify what quests an NPC gives and how you kind of find your way into them. That's definitely going to be interesting. There was a question about data spreadsheets and stuff from auction houses, and that it's definitely something that the trade nodes will have more likely, but it might be something that mayors in other nodes will also be able to opt into, certain buildings that specifically drive those sort of things. So
I didn't really like that answer, although I don't really understand the question completely either. I don't know exactly how deep of a statistics they're referring to, but I feel like if you have an auction house, you should have some sort of knowledge of what's going through that auction house, regardless of whether you're an economic node or not. If you have a place that is selling goods, there should be, even in a fantasy world, some sort of ticker that says, okay, that today we had 10 cows come through and we sold 8 of them at this price.
I could see maybe a private auction house, like if guilds are allowed to run their own auction houses, they would be able to have that sort of data. But if it's a public one, it really should have that stuff. You're right. So it's a little bit weird if it's something that requires certain sort of structures. But at the same time, I understand that they don't want to allow too much min-maxing and optimizing of all resources and all markets across the whole world. And it might be something that encourages people to go with a trade node or work with trade nodes that you can then look up what the rates and what the trends are with things and kind of work on that rather than having no knowledge. And I would imagine a Nakua village, it's like, things come, things go. That's not the most important thing in the world. Maybe not being tracked as much.
It's going to depend on the individual mayor.
And, definitely.
And the government there, and whether or not they want auction houses. And I think that's going to be the primary determinant, is whether or not your node actually has an auction house to begin with. And if those players there are interested in it, then they can build the services that allow for that.
Yeah. Well, again, we'll see how robust they want to make it and how detailed. Maybe you need structures for like bigger sets of data and features versus just knowing what's common, what's sold at what price points is something that'll just be available to all. So the next question was about, and we've only got like 3 of these left here, so we're almost done with it. What's how can you upgrade the quality of a completed weapon, or can you upgrade the quality of a completed weapon? And the answer is no. You can't upgrade your level 50 weapon to a level 60 weapon. You can break it down and use the parts for it to help you build the other weapon, but that's not quite the same. And then Maggie asked a little bit further about that. Is it where you can then use the aesthetic from an item that you would obtain on something else? And the answer is yes. So I think that was a little more what the original question was supposed to be about. So,
well, I think the more important detail is that you can enhance and add enchantments. I'm not sure how that differs from upgrading the level exactly.
It might just be that you are at the same fixed attribute rate of this level 50 weapon, and you won't really ascend much from that. If you made a level 60 weapon, the base attributes are going to be much higher. But yeah, you might still be putting the same level of magic enchantment on it, or maybe a slightly more powerful one.
We should sometime have a discussion on weapon levels, just the same as we have on character levels, because, well,
that's a good point.
Well, that's why we need to have our Valheim show. So, because I have questions about what you think about how Valheim does their levels. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because I guess that's horizontal progression versus vertical progression.
But is it? And that's where we could have a much larger conversation. Because
but I'm
saying like diagonal progression. You're not going straight up. It's
continued. It's continued vertical is what it is. And WoW is the perfect example for that. 1 through 60 is just the starter. Your actual progression takes place afterwards. But we'll have a different show.
No, I'm saying for weapons, adding enchantments to.
Oh yeah, no, okay. I thought we were still talking about weapon level.
Well, I'm saying in conjunction. So what they're saying is that adding enchantments isn't a vertical progression, it's a horizontal progression, but it just seems interesting to me because if you're adding extra stuff that it can do, I don't know, that's just interesting. If you're adding extra stuff it can do, it seems like it's a more powerful
A
weapon.
little more powerful, but it's
Well,
going to be limited by the base of the level.
It's not more power, it's differently powered.
No,
It's
and we can do a show and somebody can explain to me why a level 50 sword has a duller edge than a level 60 sword, but we can maybe do that a different time. We're already over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the last two ones real quick. For a military node with the arena combat to determine the leader, can somebody stand in as a champion for someone else? And the answer is no. If you're the toughest, baddest dude, you aren't going to be the toughest, baddest dude and then hand it over to your wimpy friend because, you know, in any normal sort of situation like that, you would imagine the next toughest, baddest dude to just punch him in the face and be like, all right, I'm the leader now. So yeah, if you're the one who wins the arena, then you're the one who gets it. Likewise, for the 16th question, very similar. If you do the service-oriented quest for a divine node, is that something where you're able to do it as a group and, you know, you, the group, become like the leadership? The answer is no. People can help you and assist you in doing the service quests that will lead to your ability to become the leader of the node. But ultimately, it's the individual who's, I guess, done the most devotion and, you know, divine node related tasks through the service quests that will be the one who gets to be the leader. So, you know, be pious, get meek, whatever it is, you know, wear your itchy wool robe. I don't know if they've actually explained what those are going to be.
Have they actually said exactly how a military node leader is selected? Like, is it a combat?
Yeah, it's
process?
an arena combat.
Okay.
The extent of that, I don't know. Maybe it'll be different. Maybe some cultures do jousting. Maybe some cultures do, you know, bare knuckle boxing. Maybe it's like, you know, group mud wrestling, and the last person to pin someone else is like the mayor and the head of staff or something.
It's an obstacle course race.
Yeah, a gauntlet. That could also, you know, be a way to do it.
I mean, you could still be a proxy, right? I mean, you could still... You'd be good at PvP and just do that for someone else who actually makes the decisions. But
I mean, you would have somebody basically as your advisor making you do all the stuff at that point. But no, if you are the baddest dude, unless it comes down to you two being the last two people,
Yeah.
It's like, all right, knock me out, bro.
I mean, from a functional, you know, when you look at a sprite sheet on a game, sure. But what I'm saying is just, you know, well, for example, I just really love PvP, so I decided to win the tournament, and I did. I became the leader, but I don't really care to mess with all this other crap. You know, you could be a proxy for someone else who actually leads the...
You could be the bad leader you always wanted to be, though. I don't care about this place. I won.
Well,
I'm
we all know I'm not
Mm-hmm.
getting there in PvP. That's not my thing. The religion component is out as well, because I want to do the opposite of what Steven wants to do with that. I guess economic would be possible, but
I just think about like somebody who wins by being a good PvPer and then saying, you know, I'll hear this. Shut the hell up and get me a sandwich.
I mean, that's true.
That is all.
That's true. You could just say, I'm not going to bother with all this other nonsense. I'm just going to go out and kill people. And I guess you're right. That then puts the node on a certain trajectory. So
yeah, and you know, likely a challenge to their position will come along pretty soon.
Which makes me wonder if the military node will be the, you know, out of the four types, when we talk about who's going to have the most turnover in leadership, you know, I wonder if the military nodes will be the most likely to have sort of constant change in direction, just from the nature of how it works. I don't know, I'm curious.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I guess the question for me, when the mayor changes, is it going to potentially change the population in the area, or is it still going to remain based on the, I guess, initial leadership to the area.
Because you could pretty easily, I'm sure, challenge. And then when you have an economic leader, I'm sure they will enact policies that make them more rich and, stifle their competition. So they're going to probably have I would imagine that the economic side will be the easiest to stay in power because you can probably directly make changes that affect how everyone else makes money and you yourself. The religion one seems like it's more of a time sink. Whoever puts in the most effort to getting favor with whatever religion they belong to, they will be the leader. And then scientific, I'm not really sure, but
science is voting, right? So
that's going to be the more true, like, we're going to hold you to actually do best by us. That sounds like that. So,
or at least if you have enough
in theory,
friends, whatever, like be able to be stable with that.
Well, we are 20 minutes over. This just kind of kept going and going. So, but plenty more to talk about next time. So, actually, yeah, node turnover and weapon leveling and that concept, all of that. So,
Grumpy, I disagree. I think a divine node will have the highest turnover. You'll basically be having your own, like, in the walls crusades going on constantly between, the various faiths trying to take over.
But that really just become more of a time sink, right? Like whoever has been able to invest the most time in their quests or whatever certain line that they're doing are ultimately going to be the one that runs it versus PvP. You could just be badass at PvP and decide this month I'm going to go do this and then next month I'm not. And then economic, again, since you're enacting policies, it's not something I would think every hour to hour, day to day, you have to be actively doing quests. And it's really just shaping the policy of your node to fit you and no one else, which is, again, you're kind of an asshole, but that's how it works. So, and then, yeah, so, it really sounds like science. That's interesting, actually. So I kind of have rethought my position. So military, religion, science, and then economic, in my eyes, would probably be the most change. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for coming out and joining us and also sticking around for 20 extra minutes. We could probably keep going, but I think we have things to do in the morning. So we will try our hardest to be back here next week and kind of continue on some of these discussions. Actually, I think
Valheim should be next week.
Yeah, we should probably talk about that next week.
We can combine the two.
That
means I'll have to actually play it and not just mess around with the files. So, Valheim has been a very good learning experience for modding games. So, which we can also talk about next time why that will not really be possible with Ashes because of the differences in Unreal and Unity. But anyways, whole different side topics. So everyone have a good week. We will be back here next Sunday, same time, same place.
Yeah. Yep. Passover and all. See you later.